I'm Annette. Standing here at the Ivy House, the garden lights flickering softly, tables draped in white linen, I can hardly believe how far I've come. The music is playing, and Eric is waiting for me at the end of the aisle. This is my wedding, but it's so different from what I originally planned. A few weeks ago, I was sitting in a cold, sterile courtroom, the smell of old paper and polished wood filling the air. Rows of strangers whispered behind me, and the hum of the air conditioning drowned out my pounding heartbeat. I sat at the plaintiff's table beside my lawyer, Miss Harris. My hands were clasped so tightly that my knuckles ached. Across the aisle, my family looked smaller than I remembered. My mother, Regina, her hair perfectly coiffed as always, but her diamonds didn't shine the same under the fluorescent lights. My father, Victor, his tie was askew. And my sister, Madison, was scrolling on her phone until the bailiff told her to stop. The clerk announced, case number 5678. Thompson versus Thompson. The word stung more than I'd expected. Ms. Harris began calmly, Your Honor, this case involves the unauthorized use of my client's financial assets and a forged signature on legally binding documents. We intend to show that Annette Thompson's parents and sister not only interfered with her wedding plans but also misappropriated her inheritance. My mother leaned towards her attorney, whispering something sharp. She didn't like losing control of the story. Ms. Harris laid out everything, the forged cancellation form, the bank withdrawals, the payments funneled to Madison's boutique. She passed copies to the judge, each page landing with a soft, deliberate slap. Then came the trust fund. Uncle Henry took the stand, looking uncomfortable in his suit. My father, Annette's grandfather, set up a trust of $300,000 for her. It would release upon her marriage. I recently discovered funds missing, he said. Who withdrew them? Ms. Harris asked. He swallowed hard. Victor and Regina Thompson. The courtroom rippled. My mother's lawyer objected. Irrelevant. The fund was managed within family rights. Ms. Harris's tone stayed calm. Family rights don't cover fraud. My mother's eyes darted towards me, sharp and cold. You don't understand, Annette. We were trying to protect you. That boy, Eric, he's beneath you. He would have dragged you down. I met her gaze. Protect me by stealing from me? Her voice cracked. We only used what we needed. Madison was drowning in debt. We couldn't just let her fail. Maybe she should have, I said quietly. Maybe it would have taught her what accountability looks like. Madison slammed her hand on the table. You think you're better than us? You've always been the boring one. Our parents did everything for you. The judge banged his gavel once. Order. Ms. Harris turned to Madison. Miss Thompson, did your parents transfer any of your boutique expenses from Annette's trust? Madison hesitated, her confidence fading. I didn't know where the money came from. Really? Ms. Harris lifted a document. Because this invoice for your boutique renovation lists your father's signature and Annette's trust account number. Madison's face drained of color. By the time Ms. Harris rested her case, every secret was on the table. My mother tried to play the martyr, my father mumbled half-hearted apologies, and Madison cried into a tissue she didn't really use. When the judge finally spoke, his voice was steady, cold, final. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff. All funds misappropriated from the trust are to be returned immediately. Additional damages of $60,000 will be awarded for fraud and emotional distress. My mother's breath hitched. My father's shoulders collapsed. Madison stared at me with pure disbelief. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just exhaled for the first time in months. Outside the courthouse, the sky was clear, a rare blue that felt almost staged. Reporters weren't there. No crowd, just quiet. Ms. Harris turned to me. You did it. I just stopped them. That's all, I said. Let me take you back to the beginning. From the outside, my family seemed like the kind people envied. We lived in a large mansion in the suburbs, with polished smiles and Sunday dinners that no one dared miss. But inside, every laugh came with a rule attached. My mother, Regina, was a controlling woman. She built our lives on control, how we spoke, dressed, dated, even what we dreamed. My father, Victor, followed her lead, the quiet echo behind every decision. And my sister, Madison, could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. When I was a child, I loved to design dresses. I would fill sketchbooks with fabrics and colors. One afternoon, my mother found my drawings. She held them like evidence and then tossed them straight into the trash. You're not wasting your life on fantasies, she said. My father just stood there nodding like he agreed. That day, I learned that silence could keep the peace. Years passed, and I became what they wanted, an accountant. It was a steady, safe job. Madison went to college for fashion design, which was creative enough to sound respectable. When she opened her boutique, my mother threw her a grand party, boasting about her daughter's vision. I remember watching them toast under the string lights. My mother's diamonds glinting as she said, "You've always had flair." Flair? The word still stings. Mine was never allowed. Then I met Eric. I met him at a local environmental fundraiser, an event my parents called a waste of time. He worked for an environmental nonprofit, mentoring young people about conservation. He laughed easily and asked real questions. With him, I felt seen not as a project but as a person. The first time I brought him home, my mother's smile froze halfway. "What do you do?" she asked when he explained. Her lips curved into something polite but cold. "How admirable," my father muttered. "At least he's kind." Madison just whispered, "Ambition's optional, I guess," and giggled. For 3 years, Eric stood by me through their quiet judgment. We planned our wedding carefully and responsibly. The Ivy House, a beautiful but modest venue, was our dream place. We saved every dollar ourselves. When my mother offered to help, I thought maybe she'd changed. She said she wanted the best for me. I should have known better. One morning, she called me back to the house. I thought it was about flowers or catering, not war. The moment I walked in, I felt the tension, the silence before the blade. My mother stood by the fireplace, arms folded. Madison sprawled across the couch, scrolling through her phone. My father stared at the rug. "We're not funding this circus," my mother declared. "Better luck next time," Madison added without looking up. The words hit me like a slap, sharp, humiliating, and deliberate. I felt the heat rise behind my eyes, but I didn't let them see it. I straightened my back, nodded once, and said, "Understood." The room went still. My mother blinked, confused. Madison smirked, sure I'd given up. But what they didn't know was that silence was no longer my surrender. The drive back to my apartment felt endless. The sky hung low, gray, and heavy, making the world look smaller. My phone buzzed the whole way, Eric calling, but I couldn't answer. I needed the quiet, the hum of the road to steady me. By the time I reached home, my hands had stopped shaking mostly. The wedding invitations sat on my kitchen counter, cream paper with gold trim, our names printed side by side. I stared at them for a long time before sweeping the whole stack into a box. It wasn't anger yet, just numbness, the kind that sits in your chest like a stone. Eric showed up that evening, his face worried but gentle. "What happened?" "They canceled it," I said flatly. He blinked. "Canceled? They can't just." "They did. They called the venue, the florist, everything. It's done." He stepped closer, searching my face. "Do you want me to go talk to them?" I shook my head. "No, this time it's my turn. Later that night, I found myself flipping through an old drawer. At the very bottom was my high school sketchbook, the one my mother had thrown away years ago. The edges were bent, the pages smudged with pencil lines of dresses, blazers, and shoes, all the things I used to love before she told me not to. I traced one sketch with my finger and felt the burn of something I hadn't let myself feel in years: defiance. The word understood echoed in my head. It used to mean surrender, you win. But not this time. Not anymore. I thought about every understood I'd ever said: when she chose my college major, when she said accounting was respectable, when she told me love should look like money and status. Every understood was a piece of me she'd taken. That night, I wrote a list of every account, every payment, every contract connected to the wedding. Something didn't feel right. It was too precise, too immediate. You don't cancel a full event that fast without preparation. The next morning, I called the Ivy House. The coordinator hesitated before answering. "I'm sorry, Miss Thompson, but your mother already sent us your signed cancellation notice." "My what?" I asked. She paused. "It had your signature." The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. I thanked her, hung up, and stared at my reflection in the dark phone screen. Someone had forged my name. My family hadn't just cancelled my wedding, they'd erased me from it entirely. I drove straight to Ms. Harris's office the next morning. She'd been my company's attorney once, sharp and unshakable, the kind of woman who looked like she'd been born in a courtroom. When I told her what happened, she didn't gasp or frown. She just started writing. "Show me the paperwork," she said. I handed her every file I had: payments, invoices, the original contract for the Ivy House. Ms. Harris flipped through each page, her pen tapping against the desk in a steady rhythm. Then she froze. "This cancellation form," she murmured, holding it up. "That's not your handwriting." I leaned closer. My name was there, sprawled across the page in clumsy ink. My signature, but not. Ms. Harris looked up, her eyes sharp. "Someone forged it, and if they used your financial info to make payments, that's a crime." The word crime hit me like a cold slap. I wasn't just dealing with manipulation anymore. This was theft, deliberate and calculated. We spent hours combing through details, every transaction, every withdrawal from the wedding account. And that's when we saw it. Thousands of dollars were wired to Madison's boutique. Another trail led to my parents' credit card payments and home renovations. "They used your money to cover their debts, Ms. Harris said. "And I'll bet it gets worse." That night, I sat in the dark with only my laptop screen lighting the room. I replayed every moment in my head: my mother's cold tone, Madison's smirk, my father's silence. It all clicked into place. The wedding wasn't just a power move, it was a cover-up. The next day, my phone rang. Uncle Henry's name flashed across the screen. We hadn't spoken in months, but his voice was tight, uneasy. "Annette, there's something you need to know. It's about your grandfather's trust fund." I froze. "What about it?" "He set it up years ago. $300,000. It's yours, but it activates only when you marry. Your parents have been managing it and withdrawing from it." I checked the records myself. I felt the air leave my lungs. "You're saying they've been using the money for years?" I asked. "Madison's business, the house remodel, all from your trust. If you'd gotten married, it would have triggered a full audit." "They had to stop it," Uncle Henry said softly. I pressed a hand over my mouth. My own family hadn't just stolen from me, they'd destroyed my future to keep it hidden. After the call, I sat still for a long time. The anger came slowly, quietly, like a storm forming over still water. I opened my laptop, typed a message to Ms. Harris. "We're filing the case." Then I whispered to no one but myself. They wanted control. Now they'll get consequences. A week after the court victory, here I am at the Ivy House again. Eric is waiting for me at the end of the aisle, his tie slightly crooked, his smile unwavering. Uncle Henry waves from the second row. Ms. Harris, who never smiles much, actually does. When the music starts, I feel my throat tighten. No mother adjusting my veil, no father walking me down the aisle, just me walking myself. Every step feels like reclaiming something stolen. As I reach Eric, he whispers, "You okay?" "I'm more than okay," I say and mean it. We said our vows quietly, not for show, not for anyone else. The officiant pronounces us husband and wife. And for a moment, all I can hear is the wind through the ivy and the faint sound of laughter, real laughter. After the ceremony, I slip away for a moment, standing beneath the same oak tree where I once cried after everything fell apart. I look up at the lights and think about how silence had become my weapon. My mother once called my wedding a circus. Now it's peace. Inside, music and warmth fill the air. Eric catches my hand and pulls me to dance. The world blurs, faces, lights, all of it. When the night ends, I write one last email. Regina, Victor, Madison. The court showed who you are. I wish you the best, but this is goodbye. I hover for a second, then hit send. Outside, crickets hum. Eric wraps his arm around me, and for the first time in years, I feel free. A few weeks later, the calls begin. First, my mother, then my father, then Madison. Each one leaves a message that sounds the same. Soft voices, forced apologies, a little tremble for sympathy. "We just want to talk, sweetheart. Can we meet just once?" Things got out of hand. I don't answer. The phone buzzes on the counter while I fold laundry, cook dinner, live my life. Every vibration feels weaker than the last. Then comes the voicemail that makes me pause. My mother's voice is brittle and tired. "Your father lost his job. Madison's boutique is gone. We're trying to start over. We need help." I stare at the wall, not angry anymore, just hollow. They had taken enough from me. I later hear the full story. My father was laid off after a scandal. My mother is working part-time at a local store. Madison is drowning in debt. The same people who once dictated my life can't even keep their own afloat. One night, the calls start again, back to back to back. The screen lights up with their names. I pick it up, type slowly, and send one text. The circus is already full. Then I place the phone face down, pour myself a glass of wine, and go back to sketching under the soft kitchen light. The next morning, sunlight pours through the window, warm and quiet. Eric kisses my forehead before leaving for work, and I sit at my desk, surrounded by fabric swatches and half-finished sketches. My first design line is taking shape. Mine, not theirs. Freedom doesn't feel loud. It feels still, steady, earned. I glance at my phone on the table. No new calls, no apologies, just silence. The kind that finally means peace.